Hello and welcome to Your Coaching Journey, a podcast for doctors about coaching. Whether you're a coaching doctor, a doctor who is learning to coach, or a doctor who'd like to build coaching into your professional life, then this is the podcast for you.
Hi, I'm Helen Leathers, and with me today is my podcast co-host and business partner, Tom Dillon. Hi, Tom.
Hi.
How are you today?
I'm very well. Yeah, no, I'm marvellous this morning, actually.
Good. I was a bit worried about you a couple of episodes ago when you were like, I'm not so sure.
Yeah, it doesn't happen very often. How are you, anyway?
I'm very well, thank you. Very well.
Good. So what are we talking about today, Helen?
Today we're going to be talking about the Gestalt cycle of experience.
Oh, yes. So last time, on our last episode, we talked about Gestalt in a more general way. But I did mention then, because there is this Gestalt cycle of experience, which I think is useful within a coaching context. So I thought it deserved an episode on its own. So that's what we're doing today.
Okay, so before you tell us about the model, just a little bit of a recap for my benefit. As we mentioned in our last podcast, Gestalt is all about paradoxical change. And you've just said this is about how we encounter new experiences. But we have a model of change that we already looked at in the motivational interviewing, episode 20, and that was the trans-theoretical model of change. So is there a connection between this Gestalt cycle of experience and the trans-theoretical model of change?
That's a very good question. I'm glad you asked that.
It was quite a long question.
It was a long question, but no, I think you're right, because they are both concerned with change, and they almost look quite similar because they're both cycles. So you would probably present it as a circle of experience or change. And actually, coincidentally, the trans-theoretical model of change was created in 1977. The Gestalt cycle of experience was actually developed in the 1970s, and the version that sort of exists, it gets changed, so you will see different versions of it, but the model that exists now was put out there by Joseph Zinker in 1977, so they're actually the same time. Now, whether one or other of them, I guess because Gestalt had been worked on for some time, that probably came first. It could be that the trans-theoretical model was just something randomly coincidental. I don't know.
These things happen, don't they?
But what I would say about the cycle of experience that we're going to talk about today is that it takes account of the extent to which people get in their own way of bringing about change. So the unconscious barriers that stop them moving forward. So this isn't really addressed at all in the trans-theoretical model of change. It's just almost like a time, okay, they'll go through these different stages, but we'll just move through them and it will all be fine. But actually, that's not real life.
No.
And within the cycle of experience, we do get the chance to explore what might get in people's way.
This sounds really interesting. So firstly, we're going to share an image of this cycle of experience on our show notes, aren't we?
We are,
for
yes.
people to refer to. Let's start to explore it then. What does it involve?
Well, I'd like to see it as a bit of a circle. So it's a cycle of experience. I have seen it illustrated as a wave, and the waves come and the waves go. But I think a cycle makes more sense to me. So if you can imagine a clock face, let's say, and you've got labels around the clock. And if we start at 12 o'clock, we might have rest. So just in that, we've talked before about the default mode network, where you're just in that space of daydreaming, nothing really going on. You're just quite a creative space, but you're just at rest. So at this point on cycle, nothing's particularly happening regard to any experience we're about to encounter. We're just in what gets referred to in Gestalt as the fertile void. So it's just that space, that lovely creative space where you're just at one with the world, but waiting for something to happen.
I'm imagining sitting by a pool with the sun, resting.
Yeah. It could be anywhere, to be honest, but yes.
That was a nice picture for me.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this is a space where we're just ready and waiting for a new experience to take our interest. So then if we move around the cycle, around the clock to 1 o'clock, at this point there's a sensation of some description. I don't know what sort of sensation, but there's some sensation. So at this point in this Gestalt cycle of experience, something is happening for us. So it may be some sort of interoception, so something we're noticing in our body. that we might not have full awareness of, but there's some change in our body, or we don't know what it means. Or it might be some proprioception, so something around us that's changing or we're noticing, but again, maybe on an unconscious level. It's not really coming into our full awareness, but we're just aware something's out there.
So sometimes when I am on holiday and I've had that rest, I get a little bit restless.
Yes.
And it's like an idea is starting to form, but I'm not sure what it is. And it's like it's like after the rest, I'm ready to move on to the next thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
And if we think about what we talked about last time in the Gestalt cycle of experience, so we've got the Gestalt is complete, we're then at rest, we're ready for something new to come.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Okay. I get 1 o'clock. That's good. What's at the next stage?
So just finish the 1 o'clock.
Okay.
It's just something's coming up. It could be a sense of unease. If you think about lockdown, coronavirus, that sort of thing, we had that ambient anxiety people were feeling, and in some ways they didn't really know why or what was happening for them, but there was something going on for them. So I think sometimes it can be that feeling of a discomfort, but we're not really thinking about it on a conscious level.
Some people get that feeling of like, oh, it's almost like I should be doing something.
Yeah.
Because, we're not good at resting, are we, generally?
No. But maybe not a conscious, I should be doing something, just a
that
feeling,
yeah.
a sensation.
Yeah, okay.
So if we move around the cycle clockwise to the next stage, let's go to 2 o'clock this time. So here we find awareness, and this is where we become consciously aware of that sensation. We know it exists and what it relates to, and that something is happening, or we are aware of it at this stage. So we're experiencing something new, some new thoughts, feelings. We've started to engage with whatever it might be. It could be a problem we're facing. It might be a new desired outcome, but we have an awareness of this experience and what it could be for us.
So that idea might have formed in our mind now after
so
that
we're
restlessness.
In that awareness, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So something's there.
And now we know what it is.
Yes. Good. And then if we move around to 3 o'clock, we find mobilisation, and this is the point where we actively start exploring what it is that's come into our awareness. So we might not have given it a lot of thought, but we know it's there. But at this point, we actually start to explore it. So it could be a new opportunity, and we want to take advantage of it. So we start to mobilise our resources, our internal resources, start to move towards whatever it is.
So this is when you say to me, I've been thinking.
Yes, I've got this idea. So if it's a problem, we might start problem solving. If it's a desired outcome, we'll start thinking about how we're going to achieve it and what resources we might need. If it's a potential change in our environment, so if we're in a workplace or in an organisation, we might start to consider our options when it happens. We know it's going to happen, but so we might start to scenario plan. And then if we move around to 5 o'clock on our cycle, this is the action stage. So this is where we start actually making plans, gathering resources, putting everything into place, preparing for whatever it is that's about to happen, and actually taking some action. So we might not be doing the thing that we're going to do, but we will start to put things in place. So the mobilisation is the thinking about what we're going to put in place. Yep. The action is starting to put things in place.
So the mobilisation could happen in a coaching space.
Yes,
and then
definitely.
You leave the coaching session and go to start to take the action that you need.
Yeah. I mean, some of that, I guess some of the action could take place in the coaching room, couldn't it? But more often than not, we have the conversation, that's the mobilisation, and then they move outside the room and start to take action. So moving on to 7 o'clock, we come to final contact. Sometimes it's just referred to as contact. So we're actually engaging with whatever it is that was at the start of our experience. When we thought about, okay, what is that thing? That's where we come into contact with it. So it could be if someone was thinking of taking our transformational coaching diploma, the action stage is the booking themselves onto it, them getting ready for it. The actual course itself is the final contact. So you come into contact with whatever it is that's the real at the middle of that experience, the centre of that experience. Then if we move around to 10 o'clock, we're at the satisfaction stage of the cycle. So this is where the experience has come to an end. we've achieved what we wanted to achieve. We feel satisfied with the experience. We've solved the problem. We've reached our desired outcome. Whatever it is that we're working towards, it's over and we feel good about it.
We've submitted everything we need to submit for our assessment.
Yes.
For our
Good
transformational
idea.
coaching diploma.
Yeah. All done.
All done.
Yeah. And then the final stage, which is at 11 o'clock, is the withdrawal stage, where that experience is over. We've had that sense of satisfaction, and then we withdraw back to that rest place at 12 o'clock. So we're letting go of that experience. It's all done, it's dusted, and we withdraw and allow for a new experience to come.
So that completes the Gestalt.
Yeah. Yes, so the Gestalt is complete.
I love this. This sounds great. It sounds like really useful and helps us to understand that process that people go through. Can we work through an example?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Yep.
Probably the easiest way to think about it is in terms of hunger. And let's imagine you're heading for lunchtime. Mm-hmm. It's that time of day, but you're busy working and not actively thinking about lunch. But your stomach starts rumbling. So you have that sensation, something's happening inside you that's letting you know it's lunchtime. But you're busy, you're engrossed in what you're doing, so you're paying no attention to that sensation. But the sensation is there. Yeah.
Yeah.
As you get a little bit closer to lunchtime, you reach that awareness stage, and you know that you're feeling hungry and it's lunchtime. But you might actually still be really engrossed in what you're doing. So the awareness is there, but you've got, well, I'll crack on with this. I'll give it another half an hour and then I'll start thinking about lunch. So you carry on doing what you're doing. Again, as you move a little bit closer, you will arrive at that, okay, now I need to think about lunch. So you start thinking about what you want to have for lunch and what's in the fridge, and you'll be doing all that. Okay, what can I have for lunch? So that's the mobilization stage where you're actually thinking about the action you're going to take. At some point, you will actually get up out of your chair and you'll go to the fridge and you'll start taking action. You'll start preparing your food, and you'll have your lunch ready. And so let's imagine you're having an omelette. So you make your omelette, that's the action. And then you sit down and you arrive at that final contact stage where you actually eat the omelette. You've had your lunch. So you're eating your omelette. So that's the final contact stage. And then you move on to the satisfaction stage. If it's a good omelette.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if it's not such a good omelette, maybe the satisfaction stage. If you're like me, that probably won't end with the omelette. I'll probably want
a
biscuit
chocolate.
or chocolate
Yeah.
or something. But for most people, the satisfaction stage will just be eating the omelette. And then you will withdraw from that experience. So we've got the cycle of experience. So the withdrawal, hunger has been satisfied. You go back to whatever it was you were doing before. So that gestalt of having lunch is over. And you're happy with it and you move away.
I think that's a really good example.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's an easy thing for people to understand, isn't it?
Easy to understand. And it gives everyone a really clear idea of what the model is all about. But we are not likely to have many people coming into the coaching room asking us about their lunch, are we?
Hopefully not.
So how useful is this in the coaching room?
I think it is really, really useful. And I think where it comes to its own and why it differs from that trans-theoretical model that we talked about earlier is that it explores what internal processes might get in the way at each of those stages. Okay,
so I want to talk more about this. What about someone who's thinking maybe of pursuing something like a coaching qualification?
Yeah,
what might that look like?
Let's explore that then. And let's go back to that sensation stage. So it might be that they've got no idea about coaching at all and the possibility of training to be a coach, but something is not quite sitting right in terms of their professional development. So they're starting to think about there's something coming up for them that, I could be doing more with my life. I don't want to carry on being a GP full time. I want to change, I want to do something different.
Or maybe I want to learn something new, which is quite a common thing that we hear from people on the course.
Yeah.
Ready to learn something new.
But it might be just at that point, it's just the sensation. And it might be that sensation gets suppressed.
Okay.
So it might be, I'm a GP. What am I thinking about? I need to earn money. I need to pay the mortgage. I just need to carry on being a GP. It's what I trained for. It's what I'm educated for. I've spent years training. I've invested a lot of time and energy into being a GP. What am I thinking about? So they'll just suppress that sensation that they'd like to be doing something different. So I think suppression of that initial stage is a barrier that might get in the way of someone making a change.
Whatever that change might be, actually, in any scenario.
Yeah. But obviously in the coaching room, we have time and space to talk through what's going on for the coachee. And if there is that sense of the sensation of restlessness and that they're looking for something to change in their lives, we can start to explore what that might be. So that suppression of that sensation might be lifted because they actually start talking about it. So I think that's one of the most helpful elements of coaching, is just people articulating something they didn't even know they were thinking. I've had that in the coaching. When I've been coached and someone has said, I remember my supervisor one time saying, "How long have you been thinking this?" I said, "I didn't know I was thinking it until I just said it out loud. That's the first time I realised I was thinking it." So I think the act of coaching and the act of someone saying out loud, just exploring things in their head and getting it out there, can be useful. So in terms of coaching, obviously we can really explore what's going on for them, what their situation is, what their kind of hopes and dreams are. And it might be that in exploring their situation with them, that we bring into awareness what it is they really want to be thinking about. So if that could be, to use our example, it could be considering coaching training. So that could be something that comes up in the coaching room. They start to talk about it. But at the awareness stage, avoidance might occur where people might not fully acknowledge or accept what it is they're aware of, and they might dismiss its importance. So in the coaching room, they might be saying, "Well, I've been having this thought, this has come, but actually it's not important. I need to carry on doing what I'm doing." So they might be, and those limiting beliefs that we talk about in the coaching room might be things that get in the way of people taking action. So they might avoid doing anything about it. So keeping a lid on it, staying busy, ignoring their emotions, those sorts of things are things that you would see at that awareness stage, just to avoid whatever has come into their awareness. So it's useful for us as coaches to explore that with them. And hopefully, if we can explore it in a way that allows them to stop the avoidance, we can move them to that point of mobilisation. So they're actually thinking about how they might go about doing it. So if it's about training to be a coach, they can think about what steps they might take to do that.
Yeah. So those ideas of who can I talk to who's perhaps already done a course.
Yeah, I think that awareness stage it's really useful to spend some time there, especially if people have had those interruptions to that part of the cycle, that they really explore what's right for them, rather than rushing into mobilising and, what could I be doing? Just to really stay there for a while and reflect on what's right for them.
That makes sense. You know, a lot of people do rush into action, where perhaps it would be better to sit and do more awareness raising. Yeah,
and we've talked about Gestalt in terms of it allowing the person to become more who they are. Well, it might be this stage they're denying who they are, or they're just not allowing themselves to be the real them. So I think just exploring that with them can be really helpful. Good. So that's, I say, we've got a couple of things there that come up for people. So at the sensation stage, we've got that suppression maybe of the sensation. They're not taking any notice of it. At the awareness stage, they've got the avoidance of that awareness. So they're just putting a lid on it. When we get to the mobilisation stage, there's obviously a lot more mental activity. They're looking around potential choices, possibilities, decisions to be made. They'll probably start thinking about some of the consequences of those decisions. So there's much contemplation to be done at this stage, and that can lead to the next interruption in this cycle, which is indecision. So they might spend so much time thinking about it, weighing up the pros and cons. Sometimes the idea of doing nothing and staying the same can be really appealing.
Yeah.
So that indecision about what they're going to do. So obviously there can be a great deal of fear at this stage as well. So if they are really making a big change to their life, then sometimes the fear can get in the way and feed into that indecision.
I suppose that could also involve that paralysis by analysis.
Yes.
I'm just going to keep looking and looking and weighing up and weighing up. Yeah.
And obviously, people can have all sorts of things they're afraid of. So they might be afraid of making the wrong decision. They might be afraid of failure. If they might be afraid of upsetting other people around them if they make a decision that
what other people might think.
Yeah. So I think that is a place where people can get stuck. And obviously, again, in the coaching room, we can support the coachee in exploring those options and making a decision that's right for them. And when we do that, we can then start working with them to plan and prepare and see how they're going to move forward. I think another interruption that comes at that stage is procrastination.
I don't know anyone who procrastinates.
So, and again, that might be around fear, but people will put off doing things, especially if there isn't a deadline for it. So if it's a new experience that people are thinking about, so maybe coaching training, there is no deadline, is there? It doesn't actually matter to anyone when they start doing it. So there might not be that burning platform to actually make the change. So I think, again, we can work with them to overcome that, whatever is getting in the way of and causing that procrastination. We can talk that through in the coaching room. Good. So once they've done that, then we move on to the action stage. And one of the interruptions that comes up at the action stage is busy work.
Oh,
so
yes.
Not actually doing the thing that they say they want to do, but doing things around it. So it might be
they have to be done.
Yes, it might. Well, I guess it might be at that. If we think about someone approaching coaching training, they might just keep exploring different providers of training and just go, oh, well, I'm going to I'm going to do this, and just keep going around in circles with it. Whenever I think of this busy work, I always think of like someone that's got a really busy day, but they start tidying their drawer, they clearing their drawer out, just kind of to avoid what it is that's coming up. So that's busy work. And I think about people revising for exams and things. They'll create a folder with coloured dividers.
And a study plan.
And a study plan. And do everything, but actually do the study. So I think we have to be careful at that stage. And obviously from a coaching perspective, we can help them to recognise that, that thing that you're doing, how is that actually helping you move forward? And this is the thing you said you were going to do. So I think just moving them towards their desired outcome is helpful at that stage. And then obviously, once they've gone past that action point and they arrive at the final contact, so they're actually doing what they said they wanted to do. So this is them on their coaching diploma, working towards their qualification. And I think it's perfectly possible for people to find themselves in that almost... That's an interruption that comes up here. So it might be they just don't actually do the work. So they could turn up to a coaching training and not show up, or not submit their final assessment, or all sorts of things that come up. My daughter was really weird around this when she was doing her degree. So she did a drama degree, and she wasn't going to hand in her final assessment.
Oh.
And we had a long conversation about it, but she said, I can only get a 2-2. And I really want a 2-1, so I'm just not going to hand my finals. So it's like, and actually, she got a 2-1. She could get a 2-1. She just hadn't looked at the figures properly. So there was that very strange interruption for her, that she wasn't allowing herself to work through it, and had got that almost thing going on. And I see this quite a lot in people that want to have an important conversation with someone. So maybe it's with their boss, maybe it's with their partner. So they've got something really important to say to someone, and they keep putting it off. And eventually they come to that final contact of having the conversation, and they sit down and they start to have it, but maybe the other person deflects, or maybe they just lose their nerve and end up talking about something else. So almost had it, but
almost.
Not quite got there. So again, I think that's something really useful in the coaching room that we can talk through with people to find out why the thing that they say they want to, you might say, so what would you like to have happen in the coaching room? And they say, well, I'd really like to have a conversation with my boss about this. And then when you see them next time, they go, oh no, I didn't have that conversation. I had a chap once who, he was working for an organisation, and he was doing some, it was some very dull stuff. No disrespect to bid writers, but he was writing bids and things, which really wasn't his strength. He was much more creative, and what he really wanted was the marketing job. And he'd been doing some work on the marketing, and he was having a conversation with his boss the day after our coaching, and he was going to have that conversation and say, what I'd really like to do is the marketing. And he sent me an email the following week saying, I never had that conversation.
Oh.
They really want me to do the bid writing, so I'm just going to do it.
Oh.
And I thought that was so sad.
Yeah.
That his Him being more him would have meant him doing marketing. And actually he was being who they wanted him to be and doing bid writing.
Which is really interesting, isn't it? Because if they had someone who, when they're being who they want to be, it's a bid writer,
Yes.
they probably would have been more effective.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's like, we can only do so much in the coaching room, and they will do what they want to do. But yeah, so that interruption of almost can happen. So once we get to the final contact, obviously we've achieved, so let's imagine someone has completed their diploma, it's all done, so we should get to that point of satisfaction. So that should be a celebration. It should be, yay, I've done it, hurrah. And where sometimes people get stuck here is not giving themselves the time and the space to celebrate, to feel satisfied with what they've done. They might actually, they might not allow themselves the satisfaction by sabotaging the end result. They might just not hand in their final assignment. But also they might minimise or dismiss the importance of achieving what they have achieved. So
I think I've been guilty of this in the past. Not having that moment of not just satisfaction, but celebration of everything.
And I think, interestingly, this is a very British thing, isn't it? We're not very good at blowing our own trumpet. We are a bit self-deprecating, and we will minimise and dismiss things that it wasn't important. Anyone could have done it.
Yeah.
It doesn't really matter. So I think that is something that we can find in the coaching room, that people perhaps have achieved something really important, but just go, on to the next.
Yeah.
I'm not going to celebrate. We'll just move on to the next thing. And obviously in organisations, sometimes they're not allowed to celebrate. It just, you've got a job to do.
Keep going. Yeah, absolutely.
And I've found this with people working on projects, where projects come to an end, and really what should be happening is a bit of a debrief, a bit of an assessment of the project, what the successes were, what they might learn from it. But everyone's busy and they just move on to the next thing, and there isn't that time and space to. So in the coaching room, we might be exploring in what ways they could celebrate, what they could do to mark the occasion. And I had this a little bit with my book writing. So finished the book, sent it off to the publishers. There was lots of editing to do. That went on. So that delays that satisfaction. Finally got the book, and there should have been that satisfaction of, okay, but it was a little bit of okay, I've done that now. And I didn't really allow myself that time and space to think, okay, well, that was actually an accomplishment. And it wasn't until I went to a book award ceremony where I'd been nominated for a book award. Didn't win, but I was nominated. And actually that evening, being amongst other authors and sitting there and thinking, actually, that is something that I've achieved. That gave me the time and space to have that sense of satisfaction.
Yeah. And I think we're so conditioned to being busy and the importance that's put on being busy. People often wear that as a badge of honour, that we don't have the celebration, and we certainly don't go back to the rest phase. No.
Interestingly, there's another phase before.
Oh, okay.
We need to do the withdrawal.
Oh, of course we do.
Okay.
Yes, yes.
So when we come around to that point of withdrawal, then quite often people will, if they've been in a job role that they're leaving, or been in a relationship that they're leaving, they might not let go. So I think that not letting go is an interruption of the cycle at that point. The cycle doesn't finish. So we're not getting closure. So if you think about, that's where the phrase closure comes from. This Gestalt cycle of experience hasn't finished. It's not a complete Gestalt. We don't have closure. So I think that's something, if we don't get to that point of closure, then that doesn't allow for that rest point and the fertile void of allowing new experiences to come. So if you have left a relationship, but you're still clinging on to something psychologically or emotionally within that relationship, that doesn't leave space for a new relationship to come into being. So it's important to get that closure. So I think, again, in the coaching room, we can talk through with people why they're not ready to let go of something, and recognise that something has come to a natural end. It's a lovely theory, something we'll talk about on a podcast in a future date. There's a lovely coaching approach called Theory U, which is like a U-shaped model. And in order to let things come, you have to let things go. And it is all about that letting go. So we'll talk about that another time. But yeah, so that's the cycle complete. But those are the interruptions that might get in the way. And so why I think the Gestalt cycle of experience is useful in the coaching room is to recognise that that's not unusual. that, okay, you're moving through those different stages, and it's not a coaching model, but it's a model of change. You're moving through those different experiences, but you will get stuck at times, and that's perfectly normal. And we have to expect that. And the coachee has to expect sometimes they'll get stuck. And part of our role as a coach is to help them become unstuck and to start flowing through that cycle of experience more smoothly, and for it to reach a conclusion and the Gestalt to be complete.
This sounds a really useful resource for coaches to me. And I think regardless of whether you share this cycle of experience with your client or not, having a knowledge of it yourself will really help you as a coach when you find people who are stuck in a process.
Yeah, I think just being able to go, oh yeah, I think they're there on this cycle.
Yeah.
They're at that stage where I'm expecting them to be taking action now. That's what they said they were going to do, but they haven't done it. And I think for a coach that can be quite frustrating, that people go away and say, oh yeah, I'm going to do this, and they come back but actually there's just some stuckness, and there's no judgment there. It's just, okay, well, they've got stuck, so let's explore what's creating that stickiness, and let's move them past that.
Yeah, let's do some good coaching.
Yeah.
Move on to the next phase of the cycle.
Yeah.
This is great. Thank you for taking us through that.
You're very
cycle
welcome.
experience.
I've enjoyed that. It's
Me
always good
too.
for me to revisit these things and just think about them afresh.
Absolutely.
Just remind myself of their usefulness. Excellent. So next time on our podcast, we will be exploring a coaching topic, which is a bit of a strange one. It is a coaching topic, but it's not necessarily a topic that people come saying, this is the thing. So we're going to talk about introversion in the coaching room.
Okay.
So I don't think anyone ever comes to the coaching room saying, I'm an introvert, help me.
No.
But there will be things that show up for them in terms of how they are introverted, that it would be useful to explore in a podcast.
Yes.
Just see how we might help someone.
I've got some thoughts on that already.
Excellent.
That's exciting.
Good.
Fabulous.
It's going to be a good episode. So thank you, Helen. I enjoyed that. And
Thank
we will
you.
see you next time. Although if you do want to subscribe, that will really help you keep in touch with us and let you know when new episodes are coming out. And if you would like to join us on our Transformational Coaching Diploma for Doctors, get in touch and we'll let you have some more details. But until next time, we'll say goodbye.
Bye for now.
Bye-bye.
This has been a Monkey Pants Productions podcast.